The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Yeah. Hello everyone. Hi. So any questions on what we covered so far? Spring IOC, or we did Spring IOC, Spring MVC, Spring JDBC, Spring Hibernate, and in Spring MVC we did a lot of stuff with annotation, without annotation, and you can return any return type. Alright, whenever you make a call. So Spring edit response. So if you have any questions or everything is good. Alright. If you are good with all the things we covered so far, let's move on to a topic, alright, called spring tiles. So what exactly one meant by spring tiles? So what do we mean by spring tiles? Right. So forget about spring tiles. Let's discuss what is tiles. Right. So normally if you look at any website, so normally you guys are familiar with these things, right? Most of the examples, or most of the reference materials are from here whenever I list it. Okay. We can take any website. Okay, here let's stick to this. All right. What exactly happening is, let me move on to see. I moved to a different page, but my header remains same. I moved on to a different page, my header remains same. Similarly, the footer too. The header and footer, they remain same. Here too. If you move on to any page, the header and footer still remain same. So what exactly happens? So are they going to write the piece of code for header and footer in each and every page? No. Are they going to write the piece of code for header and footer in each and every page? No. They won't be writing the piece of code for header and footer in each and every page. Right? So they write separate header. They write a separate header HTML or footer HTML. They generate a separate header HTML or footer HTML. They write a separate piece of code for header.html, footer.html, right? And what we do is we try to include them. We try to include those HTMLs into every page. We try to include those HTMLs into every page. So we have something called tiles. So tiles is a mechanism to divide the page to design a layout. So tiles is a mechanism to design a layout for a web application. Styles is a mechanism through which we design a layout for a web application. So here, let me run this application. Let me show you the output. See, always I used to say, right? So we after Java EE5 and Java EE6, if you look at this, there is a message here. Apache Tomcat 7 supports J2E 1.2, 1.3, 1.4. After J2E 1.4, we are no longer call them as J2E 1.5. We call them as Java EE5 and Java 6, Java EE6. Okay, I'm sorry. Just give me a minute. Not this. Yeah. If you observe, you see here, you got a header, you got the footer, and you have a left hand side menu, and you have the right hand side here. Now what exactly happens is, when you click on this add contact, when the next page gets loaded, I'm not gonna write a piece of code in header, I'm not gonna write a piece of code in footer, I'm not gonna write a piece of code in menu. What I do is, I will be defining a layout, and I will try to extend the layout which I designed. I will try to extend the layout which I designed. So we will discuss how this has been accomplished. So what is happening as usual when you run your application, right? Your container, your web container, read the web.xml, and in the web.xml you see a welcome file. When you run your application, your container will read the web.xml, and web.xml will have a welcome file list, and in that welcome file list you have a welcome file called index.jsp, and when you open that index.jsp file, what is happening? You are forwarding it to contacts.html. Please understand here, this is not HTML file. This is not HTML file. I have no HTML file called contacts.html. I have no HTML file called contacts.html. So when I open web.xml, I see that there is a URL pattern called .html. So anything with .html is attended by whom? Dispatcher servlet. And dispatcher servlet will depend on an XML file called servlet name -servlet.xml. Now in this servlet name -servlet.xml, I am using Spring 3 annotations. So if you see context : component -scan. I have a Java resource, and I have a source and I have some controllers. But did I map those controllers? Normally, how do I map controllers? Within this, we need to do like this. Bean id equal to give some name. Like, for controllers you don't use id, you use name. Okay, and it would be like this. If it is contacts.html, then what I'm supposed to invoke? I'm supposed to invoke from this package contact controller. So this is what normally I do. But we stopped doing this after learning annotations. If it is Spring 2.5, if we are using Spring MVC 2.5, then I am supposed to do this. But since I am using Spring 3, I don't need to do this stuff. This will take care of. The line number 13 to 14 will take care of. So according to the line number 13 and 14, what happens is in the web.xml, the moment it sees the URL pattern, it says that dispatcher servlet tag is taken care of. And we know dispatcher servlet will depend on the XML file, and in the XML file it founds that context::component-scan. Then I start scanning this package called controller. Then in this package, when I open this, on top of this @controller is there. Right. Then it indicates that, see, class contact controller. So @controller indicates that this is a controller class. Then in that you see a lot of methods. On top of every method there is a request mapping. And here I see a request mapping. Contacts. Now what is happening? It is returning a model and view with an empty object, because we discussed in the last class that whenever you have a form, a object need to be associated. You have a form, a object need to be associated. That's what happening here. Then what is a view? Contact. So I come back to the XML, that is your dispatcher-servlet.xml or any XML which your dispatcher servlet depends on. Now I got a view resolver, but this is not the regular view resolver. Let me show you the previous view resolvers. So if you look at your earlier view resolvers, what do you have in the earlier view resolver? You have a prefix and you have a suffix. So to that view name you used to add a prefix and suffix. To the view name we used to add a prefix and suffix. But this case we are returning a view name as contact, but we don't have a regular view resolver. We have different view resolver. What is that? Tiles configurer. We have a different view resolver called tiles view resolver, URL based view resolver. So you configure a view resolver and one of the object is tiles view. And again there is a tiles configurer. In that you are specifying that where should I see the definitions of the tiles. I see the definitions of the tiles in the tiles.xml which belongs to WebINF. So what is happening? The definition, the tiles definition. So what do you mean by tiles definition? This is nothing but a definition. The output which you see is a definition. The output which you see is a definition. The output which you see here is a definition. So where do you document these definitions? These definitions are documented in tiles.xml file. So you're going to have another XML file called tiles, and the moment you open that you see a lot of definitions. What is one of the definition mean? Contact. Now when this contact definition, it is extending what? Base dot definition. So look at the base dot definition. What do you have? This base dot definition is depending on a template called layout.jsp. So who designed this layout.jsp? We only. Let's look at this. What is in this layout.jsp? According to this layout.jsp, you have a table, and that table is divided into 3 rows. You have a table, and that table is divided into 3 rows. The first row, second row, and third row. The first row got only 1 column, second row got 2 columns, third row got 1 column. If you look at the output, the web page is divided into 3 rows. The first row is header, the last row is footer, the second row is divided into 2, menu as well as a body. But if you see, within those columns, what I am using some tag, styles colon insert attribute. So what I want to insert into the first row, header. What I want to insert into the last row, footer. What I want to insert into the second row, the menu and the body. In the second row, I want to insert the menu and the body. Now let's go back to your definition. Here layout.jsp says, what is the attribute name header? What is the value of it? Header.jsp. What is the attribute name menu? What is the value of it? Menu.jsp. Attribute name body. What is the value? Nothing. What is the attribute name footer? What is the value? Footer.jsp. So we are defining a definition called contact, which is extending the definition, base definition. Now from the base definition, you are overriding 2 properties. What are the 2 properties you are overriding? The title property. Here there was no title in the base definition. You are overriding the title property and you are overriding the body property. So when your contact controller returns contact, the view resolver will start reading the tiles.xml, and in the tiles.xml it finds a definition called contact and it invokes this definition, and this is the output of the definition. This is the output of the definition. You got a form, post, add contact.html. Go back here, add contact. So you are printing something. Again you are redirecting it to what? Contacts.html. And again you are redirecting it to what? Contacts.html. So let me do this. If I am returning a hello, what happens? Let's see. Could not resolve the name hello in the servlet. So let's go back here instead of just returning a string, let's say model and view. And here, let's say return new model and view. Let's say hello. Now let me run it again. Oh, we didn't. Did we define a definition in the title.xml? No. So I need to add one more definition. What is the definition name? Hello. So title of the page changes. And what JSP you wanna call hello.js, the body. Whereas your header and footer will remain same. Yeah. See. Header, menu, because there is nothing in the hello.js. Oh, there is a message, but I didn't send any message. No. Let me send some message. Yeah. See. So what is happening is you are not gonna build the pages every time. You just build a layout and you start defining the definitions here. The way I define it now. If you look at hello.jsp, it's only the message. But what do you see on the web page? You see a lot of other stuff, header, footer and menu. But after looking at hello.jsp, will you be able to say that, okay, this got a header, footer and body? Header, footer and menu? No. But you have to look at the tile.xml to see that, oh, this hello is a definition which is extending the base.definition, and from the base.definition it acquired the header and footer and the menu, whereas the title and the body is being overridden. Title, look at this, title of the page, welcome, body of the page changes, rest of the things will remain same. So any questions on this part, this styles part? Okay, let me reiterate it then. See, it's very simple. What are we doing is we won't be earlier after learning JSP. I started doing this. @include file equal to header.html and footer.html, or I used to create a table tag. Somehow this is what my responsibility earlier. But after having the tiles So tiles is not specific to Spring. Tiles is not specific to Spring. You can use tiles in another frameworks also. So you have a table data. So I'm not doing these all stuff every page. If there is no tiles, this is what I end up in doing. But after learning the tiles, I start using things efficiently. But to use tiles, one need to define a layout first. And according to this layout, there are 3 rows and second row got 2 columns. Then basing on this layout, I am defining a template here, or I am calling it as a definition. That layout acts like a template, and using the template I am creating a definition, and rest of them extend those definitions. And they can change whatever they didn't like. I didn't like the title and body for contact, so change it. I didn't like the title and body for hello, change it. So in this way you can add as many definitions as you want depending on your need. Or in case if you want another definition, in case if you want a new kind of definition, you are not happy with this, then you can create another layout. You can create another layout and define your another definition, another page and definition you can do it. So base dot definition another. You can just say, and you say, suppose you create one more layout and say this becomes your layout, and you can add as whatever the attributes you want to add here, header, footer, body, whatever you want. And this can be extended. This can be extended. Now what else? So from the web.xml, it goes to the controller, and when your controller is returning, now your controller is returning a string, model and view. The first argument is a view argument. The controller returns a model and view, and the first argument is a view argument. And your view argument will be resolved how? It is resolved earlier with the help of view resolver. Now also it will be a view resolver, but this is a different view resolver. Now it's not earlier it was some other thing. Earlier it was internal based resource view resolver. Now it is a URL based view resolver, and this is depending on tiles view, and this object depends on this tiles configurer, and in this tiles configurer we specify that all the definitions are written in the tiles.xml, and it starts parsing this XML file to read the definitions. Yes, we need to define our layouts. No. So okay, yes, Dana, we have to define our own layouts. This is what I am doing here. How I am defining my layouts? There should be a JSP file. In the JSP file, you need to specify how the layout should appear, and that becomes a template for a tiles definition. That becomes a template for tiles definition, and every definition need not to extend template. The rest of the definitions can extend the definition which is already created. I am creating a contact which is extending the base.definition. I am extending hello, which is extending the base.definition. Okay, Dana, is your question answered?
You made about $800.
Right. Suman, I didn't get your question.
Actually, in the contact controller, there is something like binding result.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, in
what is
model
this
we
binding
add
result,
contact
right?
this one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. See, what exactly happens is This is there, right? This contact. This contact is, as I told you, every form need to be associated with object. Every form need to be associated with object. And here we go. In the form, here we have an object. This is the form we have. But if you remember your last examples, we used to write command name. But here you are not doing that command name. In the earlier example, we used to write command name, and that command name is nothing but this object. That command name is nothing but this object we used to pass. New contact. What is the object name? Command, or you can say contact, whatever. So here we used to put the command name, and I used to write it as a contact, whatever the object name. But I am not doing this now. Instead, what I am doing here is, I will be doing this, @model attribute. Alright, @model attribute. Okay. And this, if you specify this @model attribute, that will be automatically considered. So that is automatically considered, the model attribute. So here you don't need to specify in the contact.jsp now. I don't need to write the command name object. It is assumed. It is assumed because of this @model attribute. Now, what is this binding result is? This will help you with the validations. The binding result will help you with the validations, and it is not only the validations, you have other purposes also, but one of the purpose of the binding result is it helps you with the validations, but it's not a client side validation, it is a server side validation. On the server side also you can do validations with the help of Spring framework. On the server side also one can do validations with the help of Spring framework, and in that scenario this binding result will help you out. This binding result will help you out. So this binding result is going to bind this contact object with the JSP, with the form in the JSP. And it binds the object with the form in the JSP, and this also helps in the validation, server side validations. For server side validations, Spring provides some validator class, and in that class you have some built-in methods. With the help of those built-in methods you will be able to validate the data. I will forward one example of that binding result. It helps you in validations. I don't have right away, but I'll forward one example. It will be an easier one. You can just go through that example. Was that your question, right? The significance of binding result or anything else? Alright. Oh, did I answer your question, or is it still you have a question? Alright guys, let me move on to the next concept. Called Spring Security. The next concept is Spring Security. First, let's see the output of this program, then we'll talk about it. The power of Spring Security. Okay, here we go. After Spring it will be web services. So tomorrow and after I will be discussing the web services. With that we will be wrapping up. Alright, guys, observe here. I started the application. Then I'm typing some URL. So what I'm trying to do is, I'm trying to gain control into, I'm trying to access some web page. I'm trying to access some page on the server. But did I log in? Normally if you take any application, okay, unless and until it's only read only, you need you will be asked to log in, right? So if you take any application, you want to take Gmail or or you want to take Yahoo, Facebook or anything where there is a security there, you are expected to log in there. But here I'm directly trying to access it here. Do you see a URL pattern called welcome here? Yes, right? Then when I say welcome, instead of going to the hello controller, it is taking me to the login page. Observe here, I have this any URL pattern. See, I said here slash. I didn't specify anything. So whatever the URL pattern, it will be taken care by whom? Dispatcher servlet. And your dispatcher servlet depends on XML file. So from XML file you have a context : component scan, annotations. So it goes to hello controller. In the hello controller you see request mapping as a welcome. Then according to this, I'm supposed to get into this program and supposed to say hello, right? I have to call hello.jsp and I'm supposed to call hello.jsp. But instead of calling hello.jsp, from where this login page comes? And you observe carefully my application. You don't see any login.jsp here. Do you see a login? You see a hello.jsp which only prints a message. You have all the XML files. You have a controller. But from where do we get this login page? Do you see the login page here? Do you guys observe any login page? Right. So there is no login page, right? But from where do you see this login page then? So we have something called Spring Security. So the way you have a Spring IOC, the way you have a Spring MVC, the way you have a Spring Hibernate, Spring ORM, or Spring JDBC, you also have, the way you have a Spring Tides, you have something called Spring Security. You have something called Spring Security. Now what happens is, the Spring Security will automatically directs you to the login page. So it checks, if you observe the address bar, it checks whether there is a session ID or not. If there is no session ID, then it will direct you to the login page. It will direct you to the login page. Now, you need to log in here. Now once you log in, it takes you to what? Hello controller. So you are trying to access this hello controller, but between you and the hello controller, or between you and this welcome page, between you and the welcome page, there lies Spring Security. So if you observe carefully the web.xml now, you not only see a servlet and a servlet mapping, in addition to the servlet and servlet mapping, you see something called filter. This is all about Spring Security configurations. There is a filter and filter mapping. When we are saying that there is a filter you configured, what is that? Delegating filter proxy. It is a built-in. It's a built-in class. the way dispatcher servlet is there, it is also a built-in classes. So what is it saying? Hey, any URL pattern which will be taken care by your delegating filter proxy. And this is going to, okay, delegating filter proxy. And we are also saying here that your servlet container is going to depend on this XML files. Two XML files, MVC-dispatcher-servlet.xml, spring-security.xml. So we also need two extra XML files. No, sorry, we need one XML file extra, spring-security. This one you already know, MVC-dispatcher-servlet.xml. I mean your servlet name -servlet.xml. So what happens is, when the filters comes into the picture, we discussed about the filters. We spoke about filters earlier. When we studied servlets, I discussed about the filters. Filters acts like a interceptors between the client and the servlets. Filters acts like a interceptors. Filters acts like a interceptor between the client and the servlet. So what is a servlet here? The servlet is dispatcher servlet. So whenever you make any request, before it reaches the dispatcher servlet, whenever you make any request, before it reaches the dispatcher servlet, it is reaching what? It is reaching the filter. Now what is the filter name? Delegating filter proxy. And this filter proxy depends on your spring-security.xml. So when I open at spring-security.xml, I configure something, interceptor URL. It is, if somebody is requesting for welcome, then they are expected to check for this. These are some constants. And here you documented authentication manager, authentication provider, user service and user. So what is the username? mkyon, and what is the password? So he is a user. So this is where you validate. You are validating the user. You are checking whether the user exists or not in the XML file. So in the XML file, we're going to document the username and the password. So whenever you make a request, it will be, what happens? As usual, it goes to the web.xml. In the web.xml, we look at the dispatcher servlet, but you know that between the servlet and the client, there lies a filter, and before it goes to the servlet, it reaches the filter, and this filter will depend on the spring-security.xml, and in that you have written something called autoconfig equal to true. So what do you mean by autoconfig equal to true? It indicates that there is a login page which you need to go first. Then I need to go to the login page first. That's what happened here. First login page. But who is giving this login page? We are not developing the login page. It is provided by your Spring Security. You just need to write this autoconfig equal to true. Spring Framework will provide a login form. And when you log in and click on the submit button, those username and password will be checked here. If they are valid, then you are saying he's a user. Then it matches. He's a user. Then what happens? Then the respective URL will be called, and the respective URL is returning a hello message, and the hello page gets invoked. I reiterate the flow again. According to the web.xml, right, you have what? You don't have any welcome file. Since there is no welcome file according to it, I am typing the URL. So whenever it sees this URL, what happens? It is expected to go to the dispatcher servlet. But since we configured filter, it goes to the filter first, and this filter is relying on spring-security.xml, And in the Spring-security.xml, you configured a HTTP. Whatever the HTTP says is autoconfig is true. Autoconfig true in the sense there will be a default login page that will be invoked. And what is that default login page doing now? That default login page is asking, okay, because the session is already there. I told you, right? The session is already created. Stop the server, right? And just clean this. Because session doesn't get destroyed. So once you clean it, then you run it again. It won't directly go to the welcome page. It will be going to the login page first. So we are saying with in the HTTP autoconfig, you need to intercept the URL. Means if you get any request with welcome, that need to be intercepted by Spring Security. Because you restarted the server, the session which was created earlier got destroyed. Now it is directed to welcome page. This welcome page is not user defined, it's a built-in page. See, my URL was welcome, my welcome URL got changed to what? This is by your Spring Security. Then if you enter any other invalid username and password, you don't find them, right? And who did this? Who is doing this verification? Spring Security is doing it. Your Spring Security will look at this user authentication. Authentication manager, authentication provider. MK Yong and 12346 is the password, but I gave wrong. Now let me give you the right credentials. Click on submit. Here you see Spring Security Hello World. Because the username and password match, since it is matched, what happens? It go back and call the respective URL. The respective URL is returning a hello, that is your hello.jsp, and to that hello.jsp you are saying something called message, and in that you are printing the message value. But if you see, instead of, you did this stuff, right? Model.add attribute, instead of doing this, you can also do the other way. Return new model and view. Return view, model and view you can say, and you can say here hello message, whatever the message you want to say. But why are we not doing this? Because my return type is string. So in order to support that, I am using a model map. And in that model map, you are adding the attribute and you are just returning a string. Even both of them are doing the same purpose. Here change the return type from string to model and view and use the commented line, or you can just have the return type as a string and you can use this line number 16 and 17. Both of them will serve the same purpose. Yeah. So what are the things we need to take care of? In the web.xml we need to configure a filter, and we need to add one extra XML file called string-security.xml, and in that you need to configure a HTTP tag which says autoconfig, When you say auto config, it needs to be directed to a login page. So this URL will be intercepted and directed to a login page, and login page is provided by your Spring Security. You can add the username and password, and then you click on the button, then those will be verified against this username and password which is in the XML. You can configure as many usernames as you want. You can configure as many usernames as you want. And once the username and password matches, then the respective URL will be invoked and that gets executed. Yeah, any questions on this part, the Spring Security part? Or is it good? Or do you have any questions? Alright. Then I have something else. Okay. Yeah, Suman, I unmuted you.
Yeah, I'm asking, what if you want to check the username and password from the database? Like this is
Oh, yeah.
the manually you are giving.
I'm going to demonstrate that example.
Okay.
Today I'll be doing it today. I have that case study.
Okay.
Yes, Dana.
Hi, Arun. Yeah, hi, Arun. Just I'm asking, where's the login page layout? It comes the username and the password and some submit query, the button.
That is all given by the Spring Security only. I will be adding a lot of jar files here with respect to Spring Security. So those jar files will take care of that login page.
Okay, so we don't need, because it looks like we lay out for that one because it says the submit query and it's all from the jar files.
Yes, it's all provided from the jar file, but it's completely given by the Spring Security only. You don't need to define any login page. But
so it's for everybody, so it's going to be the same login page, the username, password, submit query. For everybody, the login page will be the same if you do the security.
By default, Spring Security provides a login page. In case if you are not interested, if you want to create your own, you have the option. One can create their own login page for Spring Security.
Okay.
I'll be discussing an example.
Okay.
So I'll be showing
because suppose if we want to.
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah. If you don't want to check the username and password, suppose we are checking some other phone number or mail ID. So what's the option for that one? That's what I'm asking.
That is a different scenario. This is only for the login consideration only, security.
Okay.
So I think you have the options. I'll show you the options. You can customize it.
Okay.
So first, let's see how one can define our own login page with Spring Security.
Okay. Okay. Can you just, Arun, can you just show me that part where it's going the login page in that security Spring, the security Spring XML, where it says it has to go to the login page if the if not the session is started?
Okay, just give me a minute.
Okay.
Okay, fine. I'll show you another example.
Okay.
Here we go. you observe another one. There is a Spring Security custom login,
Okay.
and you see somewhere here. Okay, just give me a minute. Okay, just give me a minute.
Okay.
Alright. So here we go. If you see in the last example, you only had this, right? Okay. Right. In the last example, you had HTTP auto config equal to true, right? Okay. But I'm adding few things extra. Look, form login page. Okay. So in the last example, when you put auto config equal to true, in the last example, if you put auto config equal to true, then this is what you need to do. That indicates this. So this indicates that the framework will take care of the login page. Even if you don't specify this, that indicates that framework will take care of the login page.
Okay.
Right. But when I say custom login, now I'm doing a custom login example. Okay. Now, according to this custom login example, what I'm doing now? I'm specifying the login page. You see this here?
Yeah.
I'm specifying the login page. Right? So, I'm specifying here, hey, you need to intercept the URL welcome. One need to intercept the URL welcome. And this time, you need to look at this URL for login page. Then what happens? I go here to the controller. Then I scan this. Then I found that there is a welcome URL. There is a login URL. Now this login URL is returning what? Login. This login URL is returning what? Login. Then I go back and see login.jsp. Now this is login.jsp is what? I am trying to customize the Spring Security login page. I am trying to customize the Spring Security login page. So if you observe carefully here, it's all not something which I have written according to my choice. Only the design I can do, but I have to use some framework things. Look, body on load. I'm using something called document.f.j_username.focus. What is this? When you load the page, give the focus to the username field. And you are checking, is there any errors or not? If it is error, display this error block. So these are all built in, provided by your Spring framework, Spring Security framework. So you look, form, action, URL. Because these security things, we are not handling it. We are asking the framework to do it for us. Right? So these are all things you need to do. J_username, the value, J_string_security_check, password. Then when you click on the submit button, what is the URL value? URL is not something which is given by you. It is given by your framework, Spring Security. Then in the Spring Security also you specify login page is this. After login, what is the default target? Welcome. In case if the login failed, what is the URL? Login failed. For logout, what is the URL? Logout. So these all URLs are there, right? On successful login, the default URL. On failure, the URL, unlog out the URL. For these URLs, you define everything. For login failed, you define something. For log out, you define something. Now what happens? This time, when you try to call welcome on custom login, when you try to call welcome, the URL welcome, it goes to the web.xml, and in the web.xml filter is configured, and filter depends on the Spring security, and according to the Spring security, the welcome URL need to be intercepted. And who is intercepting? It is intercepted by a login page, that is you are directed to a login. Now this login is representing the custom login.jsp. Then when you enter the credentials and click on the submit button, it checks whether the username and password are valid. If yes, the default URL, look at this, welcome, asking for the credentials. Then I give the invalid credentials. Then what happens? Login failed. So what is happening when its authentication failed? Login failed is the URL it is calling. And what is this login failed URL doing? This login failed URL, look at the controller. Login failed URL, it is setting an error attribute and calling the login.js, login page again. Because your login attempt was not successful, try again. And when you give the right, it goes to the, and you have a logout. Now when you click on this logout, you have a URL again. To log out. Go back to the login.js. So this is something you need to do. Same example. The only thing is you customize your login.jsp. You have the option to customize your login.jsp, but you need to depend, based on this, you have to do it. You have some built-in attributes. You have to make use of them to enjoy the benefits of Spring security. If you don't want, you can just write your normal way of JSP file with a form, HTML, username, text field and a password field and a submit button. Is this example clear, or you have a questions on this part? So in comparison to your last example, the only difference is you define your own JSP file, but you are still using the Spring security features for validating for checking the username and password. There is a bit of JavaScript involved here for giving the focus to the text field and for displaying the error messages. But that is all taken care by your Spring framework only. You didn't need to worry about it. If you see, you don't see anywhere JavaScript. You don't see JavaScript anywhere which is giving you the red color mark. Do you see the JavaScript here somewhere which is giving you the red color mark? You have this where this has been designed. You don't see this. Nowhere you have that rectangular box which is giving you this. This is all given by your framework. Here you have a div. And this is only available when this condition passes. When the error value is true, then only it will be this div box, this div will be available for you, otherwise no. Guys, any questions or is it clear? So you have the option to write your own custom JSP while using Spring Security Framework. Now the similar kind of example I'm going to discuss, but this time you will have more than one role. So far you had only user role, but in case if you have a user and admin role, what you going to do? So let's look at the next example. As usual, you have a web.xml where filter is configured, and this filter depends on the security XML. Now in this security XML, again you are not using a user defined login. See, there is no login page. Oh, you have a login page here. Okay, and yes, you have a login page, the same kind of login page we have. So your interceptor URL admin. So if somebody is using a admin URL, role admin, there are two types of users, role user, role admin. So you are intercepting what? Only admin URL. Right click, run as, run on server. Look at this URL admin. It is intercepted. Right, it is intercepted. Asking for what? Username and the password. And role is what? User. But what is this? If the URL pattern is admin. So if somebody is using the admin URL, he should be only what? He should be administrator. Right? If I enter the user credentials, will he be allowed to access? Access is denied. Why? Why the message access denied? Because this admin URL can be only used by the role admin, not by the role user. The admin URL can be accessed by the only role admin, not by the role user. The resource is not available. Which resource? After this, on here, after you successfully logged in, you have to specify that, right? After you successfully logged in, there should be some URL. So that should be called hello, which is not happening here. So here we need to specify log out successful URL. But if you look at your last example, what did we do? Where it was? Yeah. We need to specify default target URL. After successful login, what you are supposed to do? So this was a previous example. Let me add it to the right login page. Default target URL. But we didn't specify this authentication failure. Run on server. Oh, we already logged in. We gave the credentials before. Stop. So when you shut down the server explicitly, your session will be timed out. It's not going. I need to restart it. So see, message log out. Okay. So here the login. Here we go. Right. Going back to the login page, which is not where I didn't define that login URL. That's what the problem here. In the welcome controller, there is no login defined. So let me pick it up from the last example. Let's go back to the custom login controller. Let me add this to the current example. Link start. Run as run on server. Something wrong. Okay, fine. Let's stick back to the normal one. So what is happening is I think authorization, right? Yeah. Here comes the authorization and yeah, you got a login page. So authorization, you are directing to your custom login. Then you have the username and the password. So if you try to use the username mkyong, he is a user, but actually I am trying to access admin. I try to access admin URL. Access is denied because the user cannot access it. Here I go, Eclipse, yeah, role admin, log out, you go back to your login page. So what is that I did? I just added a form login. I'm directing it to the custom login page. On successful login, I'm asking it to go to this URL. On log out, you are asking it to go back to again admin. So when you log out, you go back to admin. So the admin URL will be intercepted, and what happens when you intercept? You will be directed to a login page. Whenever you come across this admin URL, you are directed to a login page. Now you need to enter your credentials. If you enter invalid, it gives you an error message. Okay, Eclipse and give Alright. So it's your role admin. Now when a user tries to access this URL admin, there will be a message called access is denied. Access is denied. Okay. So it's all about the roles. Now you have your last example for the day, that is the custom login with the DB. Alright, and if you observe carefully this program, I have not defined any Hibernate DAO. I have not defined any Hibernate DAO for checking the username and password in the database. Look at this. There is no DAO to check the username and password in the database. Right? Here we go. This is web.xml. The filter is configured. Then there is a Spring security.xml. And this is something important for us. What is the URL need to be intercepted? Welcome. There is a login page. On successful login, default target URL. On authentication failure, on logout. Then look, I configured a data source here. I'm saying here now. This is something important. In the last examples, you did only user service. In the last examples, we had only user service. If you look at the Spring Security, you have only user service in the last examples. But in this example, you have something called JDBC-user service. And you are giving a data source object. The data source object is configured. And why the data source object is needed? Because I have to check in the database. And you look, I'm writing the queries here itself. User by username query. So there will be two tables. There will be two tables. One table is users table with username, password, and there is a enabled. Means whether this user is enabled or not. That is, this user is active or not. And there is another table called user roles with user role ID, username, role, whether it is a user or administrator. And you have a primary key and foreign key mapping here. So I have a user called mkyong, and I have a user called mkyong, and mkyong is a user, and mkyong is also an administrator. Alex is also an administrator. So mkyong is a user as well as an administrator, whereas Alex is only a user. So I have some data actually. There are two tables, users table and user underscore roles table. So what I'm doing is, I'm not writing any DAO program. In the XML only I'm specifying, hey, select the username and password comma enabled from the users table with username equal. So after getting the username, then you are getting the role of the user, whether he is a user or he is an administrator. You're checking whether he is a user or administrator. So you have a users by username query. You have a authorities by username query. So the first query is to check whether the username and password exist or not. If username and password exist, then he is a valid user or not. But if he is active or not. If he is active, then what are we doing here? Get the username and get the role. And if the role is administrator, or what is the role actually? Is he an administrator or is he a user? That's what we are checking with the second query. Second query will decide whether he is a user or administrator. The first query will check for the valid check whether the username and password are valid or not. That's it. So this is taken care by everything by whom? Spring Security. As a programmer, you are not doing anything to check the username and password. To check the username and password existence, you are not doing anything. Everything is taken care by your Spring Security. You just need to write the queries over here. And you just need to think about these tables. There are two tables, users table and user underscore roles table. The table name is anything, it is your choice only. Column name is also your choice. So here we go. Let me run this. Run as run on server. It's a welcome. What happened? Welcome. When somebody is intersecting URL. Close on. Run as run on server. You have a login page. You got Alex and the password. Username Alex. Username and payoff. You should have a different URLs. The way you have interceptor URL as your role user. So you can add one more. Admin. Role admin. What do you have in your database? Role underscore user. What is that? Yeah, role underscore admin. Perfect. Then you can say you right click run as because we just modified XML. Whenever we make changes to the XML, you are expected to do this. Restart. Okay, there is something wrong. Interceptor URL role underscore admin. It's already logged in. Intercept URL pattern role underscore admin login. So that's what we did in the previous one. URL pattern acts. Okay, acts is equal to role underscore admin. So there's nothing much you need to worry about here. The only thing is, instead of user service, you write JDBC user service. Right? Instead of user service, you write JDBC user service. And you write those two queries which need to pull the data from the database and check whether the username and password exists in the database or not. Yeah. Any questions? Meanwhile, I check that on security part. Let's see. I am not okay. Let me check here. Sumana has a question. Okay, where is Dana? How to define database connection was one question from your end. The database connections will be defined in the dispatcher servlet. Here we go. And this data source object is injected into Spring Security. The same data source object is injected into the Spring Security. Data source configuration will be in the dispatcher servlet.xml. And what was the other question? And login page. I'm not integrating tiles. I'm not integrating tiles and security. If I integrate tiles and security, then I need to define a layout. You don't need to define a layout unless and until you are using a tiles. I'm not using tiles in this activity. If you want to integrate, then you can put a layout. And you can use tiles.xml again. Yeah. Any other question? Okay, Area, you can just work it out because it should work. Log out. You have a credentials here. MK Yong and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, and you have this login controller. Then let me check. Yeah. User roles. MK Yong is user and MK Yong is also an administrator. Alex is only a user. So you can just find out this one. The admin URL you can add, the interceptor URL, admin and role admin. You can check it out why it's not working, it's not invoking. You just have try to work it out, and if you have any questions, we'll discuss in the next class. So the user is working. The only thing is the admin login should work. So the URL should be a different one for this guy. It should be admin, but this URL requested resource is not available. That is something I need to look into it. I'll just see and let you know, right, why this URL is not working when I want to use it, authorize it, like an administrator as well as a user. Excluding this line number 11 for this activity, any other questions you have, or is all good? Alright guys, if you have no questions, I would like to stop here. We'll catch you in the next session. Tomorrow at same time we started. At what time we started today, tomorrow also it's going to be the same time, and day after tomorrow also it's going to be the same time. For the next 2 days it's going to be the same time we're going to get started. And tomorrow I'll be discussing web services. I'm going to get started with the web services tomorrow. Okay. Alright guys, okay, if you have no further questions, thank you. We'll catch you in the next session. Yeah, sure. 36 and 37, right? Yeah, I'll forward them again. And I hope you are able to access the recordings, right? Okay, great. But Anand is saying that okay, he was able to access the recordings of 36 and 37. Can you just write it to Shiva? Yeah, Suman, do you have a question? But I'll forward those examples of 36 and 37 again. But recordings you can just talk to Shiva. Yeah, babe. Tell me. I just unmuted you.
Yeah, actually, Shiva, I was trying to implement my project into MVC2 pattern.
Oh,
But
the bookstore project.
Yeah,
Okay.
like you were saying that in MVC2 there's only single servlet and all the requests are coming in the single servlet, and it will recognize by the path if path contains this.
Yes.
Sorry? Yeah, but the problem I'm facing is like in a same servlet. If I'm like in a single servlet, when I log in, I will redirect to control servlet, and then control servlet, my welcome.jsp is opening, like get request dispatcher include request and response.
Okay.
So when I click on show cart or something like log out, the thing is like it's not redirected. It is not containing the path like show cart.jsp. It's like control servlet. It's on the same control servlet, and from that servlet it's still going on the same control servlet. So it is not recognizing the path.
Okay. All right. So are you using Spring MVC or are you're talking about this MVC2?
It's MVC2, simple MVC2.
Okay. All right. So okay, the URL, right? So what you can do in that case is, as you said, there is only the URL pattern is the URL value is not getting changed. It is still remaining as control servlet, right?
Yeah.
So instead of depending on the URL, send a different parameter, right? Depending on this parameter value, you perform the checks in the servlet.
So you what?
Okay. So I'll tell you here. What you were doing earlier was, you were taking a path, right?
Yeah.
You are taking a path and you are comparing whether the path got insert.html, then you are performing insert, right? This is what you were doing earlier.
Yeah.
But now your concern is because you have a same controller for everything, right?
Yeah.
So the problem here is you are always you see the path as this.
Yeah, path is same, like this control servlet only.
So what I want you to do is, whenever you are invoking something, you send a parameter. Like suppose if you are on an insert page, why don't you put like this? Some name or any variable, pass some value. Now on that servlet controller, obtain this value request.get parameter. Request.get parameter.
Okay.
Now you can check what is the value in the parameter. If it is insert, then accordingly you can perform. Right. Will it solve the problem for you?
Yeah, I'll try by this, like this. Okay, thank you, Aaron.
Thank you. Catch you in the next session.
Yeah, thank you.